Welcome everybody to Rad Pod and Chill. My name is Heidi Kuda and I am here with Jim Stewartson and High Fidelity. This is our Thursday night live stream, kind of at the bar, talking about our most recent breaker. And we had a wonderful guest with us this week, Wes Clark Jr. We're going to be showing clips from that episode. I realize that not everybody has time to watch every episode, so a lot of you do get some highlights from each week on this show when we remember to talk about the episode, because usually there's so much breaking news. Jim has been breaking a lot of news. It's very exciting. I've been doing my own thing. Hi-Fi's been doing his thing. But I just wanted to start off because it's going to shock a lot of people that one of Trump's confidants, one of his aides and pals. Oh, I don't know what that was. Oh, by the way, always great information, always super shitty tech. So just listen and, we're stoked you're here. But yes, no, one of Trump's, one of the fellows in Trump's orbit was just, pinched over something or just indicted over something related to sexual harassment, sexual abuse. And I know it's very shocking because only everybody is, one way or another in his orbit, indicted eventually over that, including Rudy Giuliani. But Hi-Fi, what do we have? It's Boris Epstein, I believe, right? What do we know?
So Boris Epstein, who some people think he is co-conspirator number 6 in the DC January 6th case.
We don't know that for sure, but yeah.
Well, some people think that, but right. I don't know if that's true or not.
Right.
But he just got busted for getting a little handsy with a young lady in a bar.
Yeah, that ain't cool.
No, it's not cool. But what it does do is it once again brings truth. I don't know if anybody remembers when Keir Giles was on our show.
Oh, yes.
And he talked about how these broken sexual deviants are great for the mob.
Well, you know what? That's awesome. Yes, I will go ahead and retweet that live so people know exactly what you're talking about. It was the most perfect, 84 seconds in the history of 84 seconds. Jim, what say you about that?
About fucking
Boris
Epstein being a giant pig. That there's nothing. I don't know what to say other than yup. I mean, the dude.
Shocking.
I mean, he's been part of that whole sort of wannabe fucking psyops set of assholes, circling around, Flynn and all of them for a long time.
Well,
he's more, pernicious than people realize.
Here's what's interesting, though. And again, this was allegations. This will all get its day in court. But what's interesting is somebody.
If you saw the interview, I believe her. I'm just saying that right now, just to be clear.
Well, what I was going to say is that one of the folks in Trump's orbit actually is a sex offender because he has been in prison for some time. The one who was in the Seychelles with Eric Prince, George Nader. There was also some interesting breaking news on George Nader today. I don't know if you guys have some of the highlights to share on that. I do if you don't.
How can there be breaking news on George Nader? Isn't he in federal prison?
Yes, he
is. It's
yes.
Not really breaking, but I think it flew under the radar for a lot of people.
It's fantastic.
But what happened was he was just sentenced to, he's in prison right now, I believe, for 4 to 5 years for basically child sexual abuse material on his phone. But he just got sentenced to another 1 year and 8 months for I forget if it was 3.5 or 35 million.
3.5 million.
3.5. Thank you. I forget where the decimals are sometimes.
Yeah.
$3.5 million in illegal foreign money funneled to political campaigns.
Yes.
And for $3.5 million for 1.8 years, apparently there's a sentencing change, and he is cooperating, it looks like, with the feds.
That's interesting to me because he runs through so many of these narratives and he runs through so many people. This will be connected with, you know, he was a friend of Eric Prince's and Elliot Brody, who got himself also in trouble. Marty wanted us to know the feds ran an investigative operation termed Operation Choke Point into how banks and other non-bank financial institutions could work with such shady activities. So there's a lot of interesting backstory to this, which I will be sharing with folks. But Operation Choke Point was choked off when Trump came into power. So this was, yes, Jim.
I was just wanted to say something about George Nader, because George Nader is right at the center of 2016. Convicted pedophile. He was in Trump Tower at a meeting with Mike Flynn and Steve Bannon. He was there as an emissary for both MBZ and MBS from both the Saudis and Dubai. He's basically their emissary. Again, convicted pedophile. Also, I believe, had child trafficking charges. So it wasn't just about, CSAM. And this dude also is the guy who, if I'm not mistaken, is the guy who brought Joel Zamel from Psy Group into Trump Tower. Psy Group was a private intelligence company that basically got a whole bunch of Twitter and Facebook and other LARPs going to create all the propaganda that was required to run psyops during 2016. So that dude, Joel Zamel, was running Psy Group in 2016. George Nader, and then after the election, for some reason, he got $2 million. Joel Zamel did from George Nader.
Wow.
Convicted pedophile. So this dude, if he is really talking, like for reals, he was there in the Seychelles and shit. Like he was there.
Hey, man, Jim, that was just some beers among friends. Come on now.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that Eric Prince met the head of the Kremlin's fucking venture fund. Literally, the Kremlin has a venture fund. And that dude happened to meet Eric Prince in the fucking Seychelles in the same bar. Oh, look, we found each other by total coincidence.
So what's interesting to me about that?
He told that shit to the Senate.
I know.
Perjuring, lying sack of shit. Terrorist.
But he was able to do that, Jim Stewartson, because he and Steve Bannon, who had been communicating at that time, both wiped their phones. So when Mueller was doing his investigation and drilled down on that, they were not able to get their electronic devices because they had wiped everything. And what's amazing to me is that still some asshole on Fox News, probably tonight, is still talking about the fucking emails. All right, when not only was Bannon using his personal email address for government business, but then according to the Mueller report, they wiped everything. So these guys should be projectionists. They should go watch Cinema Paradiso and get a new job as projectionists, because that's all they do all damn day long. Yes, high five.
I just want to go back to the name Joel Zamel real fast because
man.
Joel Zamel, he and Mike Flynn, I believe, ran security for the RNC in 2016 when it was held in downtown Cleveland at the Westin Inn, which was owned by the Ukrainian corrupt oligarch Kolomoisky.
I we need a Kolomoisky moment. We have a lot of
Kolomoisky.
I think you just like saying Kolomoisky. So
I do.
All I can say is if it's happening, if it's happening in Ohio, Hi-Fi knows and he gonna get you. He'll expose you. But I do want to say we not only had a major victory in our country in Ohio, it was a major victory nationally. It bodes well for 2024. It was a major victory also for the members of my community, my Betty Dangerous community, because we had David Pepper on multiple times in our speakeasy Zoom salons, and he gave everybody instructions on how they could help Ohio. So we had truck drivers making thousands of phone calls. We had sons of truck drivers making thousands of phone calls with his kids. Everybody was, we had a friend who did 400 postcards on behalf of Ohio. So our troops showed up and mobilized to ensure the defeat of the corruption in Ohio. What's up, Hi-Fi?
I was just thinking,
you're
like,
making a face.
maybe I should make David Pepper the governor of Ohio.
Oh no, he's going to be president, man. Yes, start there.
Make him governor first.
Yes. 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 Can I?
You heard it here first, people. We're going to make David Pepper governor of Ohio.
Okay. What were you going to say, Jim?
Do I have to live there to vote for him?
Maybe.
Yeah, you can come stay with me. That's fine.
Yeah, I've asked him if he would put up a yurt. I'm actually going to be visiting Hi-Fi in a few weeks, and I'm very excited about that. I'm going to do a little road trip and see some of our friends. I'm going to also meet up with David Pepper if he has a few minutes. I'm very excited about that. That was a day. Yes.
One little tidbit before I completely forget.
Yeah.
The oligarch owned the hotel. The guy from Mossad, literally from Mossad, from the Israeli Mossad, which is Joel Zamel, and Mike Flynn, did security for the RNC. Now, have you ever wondered why these people, why Mike Flynn and the Russians have such sway over these people? What happened with Lindsey Graham and with all of these fucking Republicans who suddenly, became extremely subservient to this group of terrorists and fascists? Isn't that fucking weird? Well, honestly, the entire fucking Republican Party is compromised out its ass, and we need to start calling this shit what it is.
Yeah.
It's infiltration by a foreign government, and we got to stop pretending that it's something else. Did anybody see the whistleblower from the FBI? The motherfucker. Let me briefly. So there's an actual whistleblower, and it's complicated. It's complicated, but there's a whistleblower who had an experience where he very, very detailed how everybody in the senior leadership of the FBI was super, super upset with him every time he said anything about Giuliani or Trump or anybody from that whole thing. He got harassed and stuck in a fucking office somewhere. And that's fucking weird. Isn't that weird? Now that's the whole story.
So weird.
There's more to it, but we will. Here's the thing that he also said that was extremely important. While he was there during the Biden administration, Charles McGonigal, the Russian asset or accused Russian asset who was counterintelligence chief at the FBI, still had a lot of influence at the New York FBI.
I'm sorry.
That's what his fucking affidavit says to the Senate. And so I'm just here to say,
yeah,
if any of those things that he put down there are true, the motherfucking FBI leadership needs to go.
Well, that needs to happen anyway, because
it needs to happen anyway. But what I'm saying is, this is a great opportunity.
Yeah.
For the president of the fucking United States to do some president shit. And that president shit is to get rid of this fucking treasonous little weasel who went on fucking Fox News.
That's what I was going to say.
Labs conspiracy theories. That's what needs to happen. And now my rant is done, Heidi, and you can jump in.
Even if he just talked about the weather, the fact that he went on Fox News when it was right in the heat of the Dominion lawsuit, and we knew that they were on the record lying about everything, particularly as it related to the 2020 presidential election. Why pick that time to go do some reputation washing for or legitimizing of Fox? It was such a it spoke louder than anything on why Ray, Trump appointed, needs to go. But one thing I wanted I wanted to ask you in reference to McGonigal, did you say asset or ass hat?
Yes. Hey, I got some good news. I got
the joke made itself, Heidi. I don't have anything.
I'm sorry, I just couldn't help it. I first of all, I love double entendres and homonyms, and I can never spell homonyms. But I was like, did he say asshat? No, he said asset. But they both work. Yeah. McGonigal, man, he sold us out. Sounds like, allegedly. We'll see what I mean. Looks bad, man. Smells bad. New York. I love you, but you're bringing me down, man. Say it every week.
I need to kind of return to something we started. Hold on, Jim. Hold on.
No, you go.
When we started, we were talking about Boris Epstein being a bit of a sex pest. And there's something I wanted to bring up today. See this guy right here? See this dude with President Trump? His name's Anton Lazaro, right? And he was big in the Minneapolis GOP. And this is him today.
Do you know how
Minnesota? Yeah.
Do you know how many of them? Do you know how many of them there are? I have a whole thread, you guys. Look up my witch hunt thread. There's one after another in prison for exactly that, and so that's why I say there's a career for projection for these guys. I want to say something about Jackie Singh, who does such exceptional work. She put out on her Hacking But Legal site an invaluable 175 item checklist on online psychopathy. And as I was reading it, I was thinking to myself, it's kind of what Pekka, our friend from Vatnik Soup, was saying, and now Soup Central, that, we all know what Musk was doing. We weren't duped when he became the owner of Twitter. But he really let all the serial killers, the psychological serial killers, back online. That's what he did. So not only the armies and the paid for and all the phony, ass ops, all that stuff, but he really let psychological serial killers, he invited them all back on, took banned, bad actors that had been doing nothing but, Russian propaganda and torturing people doing the labor of democracy, and said, go ahead and come back on. And you look at that 175 item checklist and you will recognize a lot of qualities of some of what we see. And Jim, that's a perfect segue for you to talk about the latest criminal cabal that you are exposing. And it's very important. People, I don't know that because there's such a massive effort to Hillary you and try to discredit you. It's like I don't think people understand that what you do is expose threats to democracy. That's like what you do, and you exposed a gnarly one. And every time I jumped in, I'm like, oh, these people are nice. They're so nice. Yeah. Yeah, this article, by the way, is why I wrote my podcast partner continues to do, I believe, the most important work, because I don't see anybody else doing this. I don't see any other investigative reporters doing this, maybe a year and a half from now.
It was fun. It's fun when they start selling bags of ammunition with your face.
Yeah.
That's what that picture was. If anyone's wondering, there's literally an ammunition company who is mad at me, and so the dude is selling bags of ammo with my fucking face and my tweet on it, saying that making plastic firearms on your homemade printer is not a right described in any part of the Constitution or its amendments. That's what they were super mad about, and that's why this dude is literally trying to get me fucking killed, right? I mean, why do you put somebody's anti-gun stance, as reasonable as it could possibly be, in your fucking bullets, right? So here's the real thing that shocked me. I knew there was a sort of hobbyist gun collective out there, but what I didn't know is that it has mushroomed into this fucking crazy large cult, and I can't describe it as anything else, that is just fixated exclusively on guns and stockpiling for what they believe is a civil war that is inevitable, and they're willing to not only prep for it, help it, and push it forward. It's accelerationist by its very nature.
Yes.
So there's a group called the Boogaloo Boys that you can look them up. There several of them were convicted of falsely going to blaming Antifa for things like, for example, burning down the police station in the Minneapolis riots, which was shown over and over by every person on the right as something that Antifa did, when in fact it was this group of anarchists, or at least they think of themselves as anarchists, called the Boogaloo Boys. And that group, they wore sort of Hawaiian shirts, and it was kind of goofy, except in the background they're stockpiling weapons and running chaos operations, because they're trying to ultimately bring the system completely down
through civil war. Is that correct?
Yes, it's a civil war movement. I mean, they're trying to tear down the system by arming up hundreds of thousands of people and radicalizing themselves into this sort of very violent anarchist ideology.
Yeah, right.
So one of the things that was super alarming about this was that there are psyops people, veterans certainly, and very likely active members of the military and psyops, who are part of this fucking thing. So when I started interacting with, and this is weird, but listen, the Fourth Psyop Group's Twitter account or visitor or whatever the fuck it is, I started getting attacked by these weirdos that were all kind of associated with this Boogaloo movement, also used to be called Gold Corp. So these are like gun stockpiling anarchist people who are at a minimum pretending to be running psyops in giant groups on Twitter, right? What was really alarming about that whole thing is the literal Twitter website of the Fourth Psychological Operations Group follows Mike Flynn, follows Jim Caviezel, follows Mike Flynn's new QAnon movie, and then blocked me when I started asking it questions. And then for the next 5 days, I've been getting DM'd.
Let me stop you for a second. I don't want to look at this guy. Jim, you can tell us about it, but I don't want to see it. So can you
Okay,
get rid of that?
you can move on from that guy.
Thank you.
So that dude came into my DMs and turns out to be this adopted Russian guy who's got a fuck ton of weapons in Texas. And called me every possible name you can imagine and sent me, you know, half a dozen photos of all of his fucking weapons. And so he wasn't very smart, and so we figured out exactly who he is, and let the appropriate authorities know that, you know, this kid is not stable. So anyway, it has been quite an adventurous several days. I'm landing my you know, I have kicked a lot of hornets' nests in my day.
Yes, you have.
And I do it intentionally, and I'm open about it. I tell people what I'm doing while I'm doing it. Okay, guys, here's what I'm doing. I am interested in you people, so I'm going to interact with you in ways that make you interact back with me, and you know, and learn about you, and what you say, and how you attack me, etc., etc. And I'm used to that, and it's okay. I don't mind if people do that. That's what I signed up for. But when people are starting to send me pictures of what's supposed to be my front door, you know, putting my fucking address, starting to bring family and shit into it, it goes to a different place.
Right.
So I ended up shutting down that whole thing, and it's fine, whatever. But I do want people to understand about this thing, and if you have a chance, please read the article on my Substack.
Yes. Right.
It's mind-war.com, and because there's a whole shitload of these people making Fisher Price like automatic rifles in their fucking basements, right?
Yeah.
They buy the hard parts that they need, like the barrels and shit, from gun manufacturers, and then they print the rest of the gun, and then they shoot it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of these things, and there's a lot of very, very angry anarchists who don't have any empathy left anymore. They've gone all the way down the radicalization pathway.
So thank you again for always, you know, being willing to throw yourself out there and subject yourself to this, to bring these threats to America and these threats to our democracy. I think it's really, really important work. And there's two things that jumped out at me. One is that we had Dr. Mia Bloom on a few months ago. I had her on my speakeasy recently. And then also I interviewed her in relation to Sound of Freedom. And she's just so incredibly insightful. She wrote Pastels and Pedophiles Inside the Mind of QAnon. She talks about ISIS radicalization techniques. That picture that I didn't want to see because I'm very news porn sensitive. As you guys know, I've got post-traumatic news syndrome. And so my sensitivities are different. As Hi-Fi likes to joke, I haven't been desensitized by the internet yet. But no, but I look at that and I see like ISIS. I see like that kind of level of radicalization or posing to bring that kind of you know, fear to people.
No, this is ISIS shit.
Yeah.
It really, like, so, you know, I'm listening to some of these guys and, you know, in their spaces, going, you know, where they go, check them out in ways that they don't know yet. And no, these are legitimately radicalized people who legitimately believe that the solution to everything is to destroy everything.
Yeah, well,
I want to say one thing because it relates, and Hi-Fi, you need to be ready for something, and you'll know what I mean. Anarcho-capitalists, there's a whole bunch of these critters out there who claim to be anarcho-capitalists. I want to be very fucking clear. There are like 10 anarcho-capitalists in the world who have billions of dollars and profit from you fucking lemmings calling yourself anarcho-capitalists and doing the work of these fascists who profit from suffering and death and gun violence and all of that shit. You are being fucking psyoped. That's what's happening here. And one way or the other, you're gonna fucking realize that it's actually not the solution to fill the country with deadly firearms and then set everybody loose at each other.
Right.
That's not actually what we should fucking do in America. And if you
Right.
think that, you are being psyoped by Peter Thiel and others of his ilk.
Oh, hi. Thanks for checking in. I'm still a piece of garbage.
That was, I mean, you landed that plane, you stuck that landing. Nice work, gentlemen. What I also wanted to say is that they are using an iconic logo, which Jim taught me about, and our friend Gal taught me about, which was the logo or variation of a logo of a very important team that fought fascists in World War II. That you can't do that. That's not that you can't do that. Like, no, I'm not. That is not cool. That is not cool.
Hi, can we just briefly see that logo? The Ghost Army.
I killed it already.
Okay, Ghost Army. For people who don't know, if you remember the little patch that you saw in there,
Yeah.
and then the Twitter circle with all these fucking LARPers abusing this patch. That patch helped win, or the people who wore that patch for real helped win World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And the way they did that was by distracting huge amounts of the Axis army by psyoping those motherfuckers,
Mm-hmm.
by building big inflatable armies and shit that didn't actually exist. That in the air surveillance that they had in the day looked like there was an army somewhere that it wasn't. That's why they called it the Ghost Army, is because they set up ghost armies all over the place and fucked with the head of the Nazis.
Yeah.
And it worked a lot.
Right.
It worked with some very, very important battles. D-Day, for example, like a lot of important shit. And when these fucking LARPers are out there who claim to have all of this fucking valor, building Fisher Price weapons in their basements and wearing the fucking avatar of one of the most important actual anti-fascist teams in the military, then you guys need to remember your fucking oath.
Yeah.
That you swore. And you have to remember what country you swore it to.
Yeah.
Don't come to me like I'm some kind of fucking anti-American. That's you.
That's right. Jim Stewartson is the patriot here, and I don't. No. I can say that. I can say that you care about your country. That's why you do this work.
It makes me cringe.
Well, the reason we all do this work is because we give a shit about the country. We give a shit about the future. We give a shit about the world and our children, and we don't want people like that to cause the types of harms that we've already seen being caused. So that's a more wordy way to say that I'm grateful for what you do. I also feel like when we talk about just like demanding things back, I truly like, it wasn't until we elected Joe Biden that I put my flag back on my Christmas tree. That was a big deal for me. There's been as Ruth says, every time we see a Trump lawyer on TV, every time we see Giuliani on TV, every time anybody, and again, I just see the clips. I don't watch TV, but I know that what these guys are doing, they're just doing information warfare. They're just paid trolls. That's what they do. So I do think it's very important to point out that Steve Bannon is the one who's been running around saying, burn it down, burn it down, burn it down. And I bring that up because I have a very dear friend who used to watch InfoWars and War Room, and now he watches RadPod. And guess what happened when he started watching RadPod? He doesn't watch InfoWars anymore. And he thinks that Bannon is the Antichrist. So people can change if they get some different information in their heads. But
can I just, one of the things I noticed about a lot of these Boogaloo boys, because I was watching the interactions, and there was a lot of God rhetoric with a lot of them, and that, well, I think Wes said it best.
Christianity's been used for hundreds of years to take people's property away from them, to murder them, to prevent science. I mean, look, you want to know why we've lost lots of our knowledge throughout history? Who burned down the library in Alexandria? Who destroys knowledge over and over and over again? And if you look at many of our kind of grifting, Protestant preachers in the United States, these are uneducated morons who spend their entire intellectual energy in life trying to reinforce and validate ideas that they were told as children by their own parents who didn't know that much. I mean, that's a human tradition that goes back thousands of years. It's just they've learned to kind of weaponize it for politics.
I'm his biggest fan. What can I say? Do you have all the clips I asked you to cut from Wes? Because I'd love to run a few of them right now. We brought him on to talk about the climate crises, which he's very knowledgeable about. But that meant we had to talk about disinformation and people's, the oil industry's billions that they spend to intentionally interfere with people's understanding of climate science. And part of that is, of course, pushing the God rhetoric. And one thing before we move on to something else from Wes, I couldn't help but just sort of slide in and make a comment. And you know me, I always say things like, Jim, they really seem to like you. I don't, come at it directly. But there was somebody who apparently was genuine U.S. military, if you're to believe his, bio and blue check. I don't know that for a fact. I don't know if this gentleman's real. But he basically said the same thing that women, are told, oh, you asked for it when the attacks were happening. And I took great offense to that. And I believe it was probably just concern trolling, because that's what ultimately happened. But yeah, Jim didn't ask for this. Jim is basically doing the work that the media is refusing to do by exposing these networks that are trying to harm democracy. I'm not going to say anything else, Jim. I know it makes you cringe, but I'm respecting your work. That's all I got to say. And you're luckily you're muted, so I don't even have to hear it.
It up and he just acts like
that's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say.
I want to clarify one thing. I did ask for it. I did ask for a bunch of people to be mad for me. I knew that they were going to be mad at me. I told them I wanted them to be mad at me, and I told them that I was studying them in the process. And they made fun of me.
Big difference.
Oh, right. But what that motherfucker, and I was there in that interaction, that dude was defending a guy who made literal death threats.
Yeah.
That is a different thing.
Yeah.
And if you can't understand that there's a difference between saying, every possible dirty word you can imagine about somebody, versus threatening them with physical firearms that you can see, and in many cases showing you your fucking house, that's a different thing. And that little motherfucker was like, well, don't you think you should think in my responsibility? I'm like, bro, look,
can I just
hold on? I am a big boy. I don't give a fuck what any of you lepers say. I really don't. Say anything you want. When you start fucking with me like that, when you start actually threatening my life and putting me on bags of fucking bullets and showing me your goddamn mask in my DMs, I am going to come fucking after you. Do you understand? It's not difficult to understand that is a different, that there's a line there that I don't appreciate.
I get it, and I don't think he was there to appreciate any nuances.
No, of course he wasn't.
I think he was a blunt, and you know how I know that? Because then I posted the death threats I received. He made no comment about that. He was just, oh, I guess you missed the part where I said blah blah blah. I'm like, I didn't miss that, dude. What I see you doing?
There's always a walk back, right? There's always I was just joking, or
whatever.
I'm making fun, man.
Can we please see another clip from Wes, because he brought the fire. He brought the fire. What else you got? There's one I want you to end on. What else do you got?
I have one other one about Wes that has, well, yeah, it's about kindling. And then I have the closer. And that's
okay. Well,
that's
let's see kindling, and then we'll.
Look, let's say Jesus came down tomorrow, okay? Or aliens came down tomorrow. Does that mean like you're not gonna have to make your bed the next day? Does it mean you're not gonna need to like have breakfast anymore? Or like, you know, your yard is gonna mow itself? I mean, they're all kind of childish fantasies of, you know, I won't have to do anything ever again. And in one sense, you know, that's correct. When you're dead, you won't have to do anything ever again. But it's not like a fantasy life that we want to have. Like the only thing we can ever be certain of is that we're alive now. And no matter what your religion is, they've all got, you know, they're all kind of trying to tell you how to live now. Like the nature of sin isn't that you'll go to hell, like, you know, when you die. The nature of sin is that if you do all these things, you're going to wind up alone in this life. And for social animals like human beings, that's hell. So if you look at like, what are the 10 commandments? Okay. People are like, if you've got somebody out there you were friends with and they're a liar and a cheat and jealous and they've committed murder and all these other things, are you going to maintain that friendship for the rest of your life? Of course not. They grow more and more alone. They grow more and more bitter and angry because they're alone. And to a large extent, this is the kindling of the Trump movement.
Yes.
Is these bitter, broken people.
Well, there you go.
Wow.
Kind of explains some things. Except here's the thing it doesn't explain. Is that, you know, the internet allows these people to connect and they form groups. And when they get in groups, they exacerbate each other's behavior and they egg each other on. And that's how you end up with things like Christchurch or the synagogue shooting in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So
yes, that is true. Let me just add. There's a sort of, and I know you're not saying this high five, but just for the audience, there's a kind of myth that these things organically get radicalized all by themselves, right? That the human race suddenly radicalizes itself. If everybody gets together in a group, everybody's gonna get radicalized and it's gonna be fucking that's bullshit. What has happened and what constantly happens is intentional. It's people who know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what is going to radicalize people, and they systematically do it. And so when you see these people out here doing this shit, it's not some, you know, magical potion where everybody all of a sudden got turned into a fucking right-wing pro-Putin Nazi. That's not a thing that just magically happens. It happens because somebody's running the psyop. Somebody is driving propaganda into the public's mind intentionally. And I just need us to not anymore go with the blooms of Nazis are just suddenly happening. Oh my goodness, that's so weird. It's like mushrooms. It's not. It's intentional.
That's right.
And it's clear how it works and who's doing it.
That's right. Thank you for that, Jim. Thank you for that, Jim. That was amazing. And I do want to say that yesterday we learned that Fani Willis's RICO indictments in Georgia encompass more than a dozen people. And just like any garden variety coup, in my opinion, they likely incorporate politicians, lawyers, business leaders, and members of the U.S. military. So look out, because I think that's going to be hot. And apparently that's next week. And when it happens, we will go live.
I would like to point out to our audience, if they remember the Buffalo shooter.
I was just thinking about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Authorities, you know, did we ever hear anything from that? I don't know. But it seems to be one of a number of instances where there are federal agents involved in, or former federal agents involved in
This was a retired federal agent living in Texas.
No, let's say it. Grooming
Yeah.
young people into white supremacist mass murder.
Yeah.
Literally, right?
Yeah.
There's a fucking FBI agent,
Yeah.
apparently, according to reporting, that was in a Discord room with the little Nazi that shot 10 people at Buffalo for months on end. Again, let's just to bring it home. That's not some sort of accidental thing that just magically happened, right? This kid didn't radicalize himself,
Yeah.
and you don't radicalize yourself like that. It's intentional. Are there some people that get radicalized online and do stochastic shit? Yes. But by and large, when you get people who are trained like this, who go out with serious firepower and commit these kinds of crimes, there's a reason for it, and there's a force behind it.
Well, I remember looking into that kid's history, and he wasn't always like that. So I think that's what you're saying. And if anybody wants to rewatch our Jeff Charlotte episode from a couple months ago, he goes into great detail on what Ashley Babbitt was like before she fell down the MAGA, which is a Russian op, rabbit hole. That has nothing to do with Make America Great Again. That is an operation. And I'm sorry to break it to people who are confused about that. But same thing was done in Ukraine. Same thing was done in Hitler's Germany. A lot of the same people that were working in Ukraine, Paul Manafort, etc., brought all that nasty shit here when he was grooming Trump to be the Yanukovych for America. So it's quite simple for people if they actually want to look and see what really happened.
There's a I wrote a piece called Jane's Story that has helped some people, at least kind of, if not be able to empathize with people who've been radicalized, at least be able to understand it. Mm-hmm. If you just look for Jane on Zitter or whatever the fuck it, my name and Zitter, mm-hmm. you'll find Zitter. It, or Substack.
Zitter. 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 Huh? I've never heard Zitter. I hadn't heard Zitter. I had not heard Zitter.
I apparently, if I don't know, see, I was one of the first people to ever say Zeet, like fucking 4 months ago. It seemed like obvious that was what it's going to be called.
Oh my God.
So yeah, AI art is amazing.
Yeah, I've been seeing it. Yeah,
that's how I get most of my.
Yeah.
I mean, I spend time. It usually takes me, a long time to get the right sort of combination of things, but people.
Yeah, for sure.
Wait, but speaking of AI, let me say one thing. Mike Flynn's new fucking psyops book.
Yeah.
Is all about AI and how you should be fucking terrified of AI because it's coming to get you and it's gonna. And guess what? He wants to tell you that AI is gonna feed you disinformation. So what all of this means is that Mike Flynn is very anxious to figure out how to weaponize artificial intelligence for psychological warfare because he's a piece of shit. And also, if he can scare the bejesus out of QAnon about AI and make it seem like some magical force that they can never understand, then he can use it against them, to continue his fucking war that we refuse to acknowledge.
High five.
I would just like to point out that I offered up a solution to this, I don't know, a year and a half ago, where it's very simple. All your software has to produce, if it's AI produced, it has to produce watermarked content produced by AI. Here's your software. It needs, and if you post it online without a watermark and you're found out, you face fines, period. Make it hurt. and then people won't do it.
It makes so much sense that it won't happen for 25 years. So I do want to say that Fannie Willis's RICO indictments that are coming up next week incorporate more than a dozen people. So if you were part of the scheme to steal people's right in America for their vote to count, then you may get some information from Georgia, So I'm just saying.
Does anybody remember the RICO Law commercials?
Yes. Marty was singing, "Take a load off, Fanny." Take a load off.
That's appropriate.
A load off, Fanny. And
I also
put the load right on me.
No. Just put the load directly into prison. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200.
Oh my God, it's going to be so interesting. I mean, it's going to be wild because I would imagine politicians will be indicted. I will imagine retired military likely indicted. When you look at Votnik Soup's website, votniksoup.com, it's literally like politician, business leader, blogger, retired military, politician, business leader, blogger, military. It's going to be like it's going to be a scene, man. That's all I got to say is it's going to be a scene.
I do have some more good news. There's a woman named Michonne up in Michigan, and she was part of the fake elector scheme. And she had applied to go to, I believe it was a Mike Lindell conference. And the judge said, no. So it's nice to see people taking it seriously.
Yeah. So speaking of taking it seriously, everybody needs to go to lucid.substack.com and read Ruth's explainer on PragerU. It is so important to read the information warfare that is masked as curriculum being installed in Florida. And right now they're looking at New Hampshire. It is absolutely, first of all, who do you think funded this shit, right? It took me like 2 seconds to find an extractive billionaire, a billionaire in the, of the fossil fuel variety. So we've seen this before. We've seen it in other countries before. And if we weren't America, we might recognize that it's happening here. So please, everybody, look up PragerU. You don't want it coming to your school districts, any school districts near you. So
I need to point something out because that's just how I am. This is the guy that runs PragerU. He's this dude.
Oh shit! I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So if that's the guy you want teaching your kids, parents,
wow,
fucking weird.
Has anybody ever looked at PragerU shit? It's
awful. It's horrid.
It's racist and
it's everything, but it's also kind of slick. It's got that little educational sort of, like they got some fucking, some reasonably good marketing dipshit to do all their stuff. And it's just like, oh, look at my charts, the little people going across, and we're going to teach you about great replacement theory. It's like, what the fuck do you need Prager in school? Mm-hmm. You don't get to do that. It's not, it's America. You don't teach that. Does fuck. What is going on?
Yeah, no, we knew going into this year, A, we were going to find out if we're still a country with rule of law, and B, it was going to be a terribly dangerous shit show, and it is, and it's going to get worse through 2024, but we need to hold the line like what happened in Ohio needs to be replicated everywhere. 70% of Americans do not want any of this junk. And like Wes Clark Jr. said, and by the way, for those who don't know our friend Wes Clark Jr., he was the subject of the American PsyOps series that our friends from Active Measures, Jack A. Bryan, produced. And it's very, very important. As many of our friends do know, Wes's father was the head of NATO, ran for president, 4-star general, and Wes was very involved in environmental justice issues and ended up getting sort of swept up in a psyop storm. And they do a great job of telling that experience. But I do, with the time we have left, I would very much like to hear from Wes. What do you guys think? Should we let Wes take us out? I think that'd be the way to go. Thanks, you guys. You rock.
We're in serious trouble on climate. As you know, this is like, I've put up wind turbines. I've been intellectually, emotionally, professionally intertwined with this issue for over 20 years. And I've always told people around the mid 2020s is when life is going to start getting bad. We cannot continue forward like this. The crops only have to fail once for everything to become a disaster. And crops, like many other things, are based on predictable, stable weather patterns that we've had for thousands of years. And there's no ironclad rule in physics that says it can't be 150 degrees outside. There's nothing that says that. Now, we will not survive that, but there's no like rule that says the earth has to be habitable for humans.
Right.
And we need to recognize it, and we need to understand that this is going to require sacrifice from everybody. It's going to realistically, I know nobody wants to talk about it. It's going to lead to a decline in living standards for everybody. It's going to lead to less personal autonomy for everybody, because you're not going to be able to have a car to drive around. Maybe you will if you live in rural America or something, but the number of people with cars in cities and tourist flights to and from places. I mean, we put an enormous amount of carbon into the atmosphere, and it's either we change or we're going to die. And it's not a matter of me wanting to like put down or keep down certain groups of people from celebrating and having fun and doing the stuff they've always done. It's like we're in a car, okay? And that car is going 100 miles an hour, and we're in the back seat, and the guy in the front seat driving is fucking drunk, Jack Daniels in one hand, a pistol in the other, and he's like, we got one more house to go to. We're going to go pick up some weed and some coke and other stuff. And you're like, dude, let me out of this car. But they're not going to let you out of the car. Like, we have actual dangerous lunatics in charge of our countries. And it's not just the United States, it's everywhere. And it's at every level, because they keep imagining that somebody is going to come save us. There will be a miracle technology that we suddenly make that will happen. Like Jesus will come down or aliens will come down. And the reality is none of that is going to happen. What's going to happen is physics is going to happen. And physics and math are predictable. And it's bad all the way down. Like if you're worried about food inflation, and this is my fear for the 2024 election, you're going to have food inflation because there will be less food and more people. And this will continue no matter who is president, no matter who is in charge, because we have massively fucked up our environment. So that's all I got to say. And hopefully we can find a way to fix this, but it's going to take like honesty. It's going to take science. It's going to take understanding chemistry and physics and not relying on someone coming to save us. Because as a Christian, you know, look, you make your own bed, man. Like everything in scripture is like, we will pass down the inequities of the father for 4 generations upon, you know, the family. Yeah, because when you make decisions that affect the real world, the consequences, they roll on for generations.